Well, today's hearing concerns a tax law that was conceived in secret, where not a single member of the Trump administration had enough courage to come and face questioning in this committee or anywhere else in Congress. A tax law that was so perverted that, fearing its flaws would be exposed, its sponsors denied any public hearing before the Congress before forcing the bill through. And so today, one business after another is finding a flaw here and there, an unintended consequence, or perhaps an intended one that will eventually have to be corrected in further legislation. Today, after the damage has been done by perhaps what is the most unpopular tax break law in American history, we have what is basically a public relations meeting going on. Put a big happy face on a Republican failure. One example of the difference between reality and the promises that were made were the claims of Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, one of many who refused to come before the committee. He expanded on an administration claim and told America that every American household will get an average of $4,500 in extra income each year, all at the end of the corporate tax break rainbow by waving his tax break fairy wand, I suppose. Well, I think a more realistic assessment of what has actually happened this year came not from a Democrat, but from Republican Senator Marco Rubio, who said, quote, "There's no evidence whatsoever that this corporate tax cut was massively poured back into the American worker." I think Mr. Ratner has outlined this well, though what he has given us today is what is popularly known today down at on Pennsylvania Avenue as fake news. Fake news being defined as anything in reality that does not comport with the wishes and claims of the administration. Because as Mr. Ratner pointed out, we've not seen any surge in new jobs. The rate of job creation that began 7 years ago in the Obama administration has actually declined slightly on average during this administration. Many large corporations with multi-billion and billion-dollar tax benefits have actually laid off employees. Wage growth has been very sluggish, a far cry from the $4,500 that we were promised. The modest average increase in weekly earnings for American workers was actually smaller in the 3 months since the tax bill than in the 3 quarters before that. And it's been about half the increase that we saw during the Obama administration. Perhaps this wage design was not a flaw in the plan, but was actually its purpose. Trump's very close advisor, White House National Trade Council Director Peter Navarro, I heard recently on CNBC saying, quote, "I don't see any inflation to speak of in the economy, and a lot of the reason is things like the president's tax cuts, which are going to stimulate, quote, downward pressure on wages." So whether the Trump's intention was actually to encourage a downward pressure on wages or just reality that this gimmick did not work, I think every American family has good reason to be out there asking, where is my $4,500? Because it's just not out there for most families. Of course, some people did really well. 6 banks got in 1 quarter $3.6 billion. The 10 biggest pharmaceutical companies got an $80 billion tax break, but they didn't reduce prices and they didn't invest more in their companies. A further problem not fully explored is the effect of this new law on outsourcing American jobs. It was the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office which recently joined many experts in pointing to the new incentives in this tax law to encourage American multinationals to invest overseas. CBO said by locating more tangible assets abroad, a corporation is able to reduce the amount of its U.S. taxable income, and by locating fewer tangible assets in the U.S., a corporation can increase the amount of U.S. income that can be deducted. Together, it basically is an incentive to locate manufacturing offshore, not onshore. Trump talks about making America great again. The incentives in this bill, new incentives, are to make China great again. And I yield back.